As a digitizing system, Stitch and Sew provides tools that make it easy for just about anybody to learn how to create exact logos, professional quality logos, or any other type of image you want to do in embroidery. To digitize in Stitch and Sew, click on the digitizing button on the upper left corner, putting the program into digitizing mode. The control panel appears that's appropriate, showing you the various drawing tools available. We're going to show you two important ones that let you create just about any type of shape. First is the freeform tool, which we click on, and that lets us basically follow a shape. Now, to give this demonstration a little bit of meaning, we'll import an image, and if you install Stitch and Sew, whether it's the demo version or the real version, you can go to Create, Import Image, and a stock library of practice images appears. We'll go ahead and choose one. And in doing so, we can pick how large that image is. In this case, this is about 3 inches by 3 inches. If we want it smaller or larger, we click on this button. And in this case, we'll choose maybe 3 inches. And you'll notice that when I adjust the width to 3 inches, it adjusts the height accordingly automatically, so we don't have to think about any calculating. I click OK, and finally click OK to import the image into Stitch and Sew. I'll center the image, and you'll also immediately notice that you can zoom in with the standard controls just like in any other Windows viewing programs, using the magnifying glass in this case to fill the screen a little better so you can see what we're doing. And from here we have several options. For those of you who like a little exactness, we can view a grid. A default grid is about 1/2 inch, so if I show my grid, we have an overlay seeing how large each size and element of the design is, which helps us make judgments when we're building fills, satin stitches, and running stitches that we'll take to create this design in embroidery. So now that we're set up with an image that's loaded into the program, I'll now use my freeform tool and show you how this behaves as we try to create this shape as exactly as possible. We trace shapes in drawing programs by choosing a good starting point. In this case, I'm going to trace the beak of this dolphin, and I'll start anywhere along the edge. And when I click, notice it leaves a point. And then when I click further along the edge, I'm going to proceed clockwise. And when I set a second point, it automatically joins those 2 points with a line. Now, as I continue further clockwise along that shape, it begins to curve that line automatically to adjust itself so that the points that I'm setting are automatically joined by a path. And that path, when I continue all the way around, will enclose the area, and when we finally hit stitch it, we'll fill in with the stitches that we choose to create the embroidery shape. Now, at critical points, like where we're changing direction at this corner, for example, I'm going to hold down the control key, and instead of making a round point, I'll click, and the result will be, when I come out of this, a corner point. So I'm going to come around the curve further clockwise, click again without holding down the control key, and now I've got the starting of a curve where this is a corner. And notice I didn't quite get what I was looking for here. The curvature didn't match. I can actually, before finishing, grab the side and adjust that curvature. Or if I'm even unhappy with anything else along the path, I can also grab any mouse clicks that I've already set, adjust their position. And even if I'm unhappy with the last point that I created, or the last few points, I hit the delete key once, delete again, and as you can see, it's deleting the points along the path, the last points that I've created. So the delete key again undoes the points that I've created. So you don't have to worry about placing points exactly as you're drawing. So even as you're learning, you can create shapes as exactly as you want without having to be an expert in the system or even an artist. Once we've joined our shape, you'll notice that I've enclosed that entirely, and then I right click and I make sure that it's an uncheck open curve, and that joins both ends. And now I've got an area that's corralled in by my drawing tool, and all I have to do is pick the color, and to do so I click on my color palette, and if I want to match the color underneath here, I simply click on eyedropper tool to pick up the color underneath, and when I click OK, that becomes the active color, and when I hit stitch it, the area then fills in with the stitches conforming to the shape that I just drew. And we can continue drawing this entire image by doing so. We'll create a couple of other shapes just to show you. Again, we can repeat using the freeform tool. Starting again, pick a starting point and continuing clockwise or counterclockwise, it really doesn't matter. And again, you're seeing we're not too worried about getting an exact shape here. We can always go back and adjust when we have a point to pause. And then continue on until we trace the entire shape. Again, right-clicking and unchecking Open Curve to close that shape in. I'll show you something new this time. This long bar that also appears when you click on the freeform tool also allows us to set the angle of the stitching. And as you remember, we can click on our color palette and allow it to also choose the color of our stitches that we're going to fill in. And finally, one other thing before we continue. In the right click, we also can bring up the embroidery settings of the type of stitches that will be appearing, where we can adjust about anything that we want to. In this case, if we let this sew, it's going to sew for piqué golf shirts or any other type of shirt. We can manually adjust these settings or go back into preset fabrics and choose a different kind of fabric. In this case, we'll go ahead and do this for a jacket and possibly leather jacket, and suddenly everything is set up without us having to worry about any of the science of how stitches form, directly for the type of garment that we intend to sew on. I hit apply, and then when I fill in my stitches, then not only is it in the shape that we want, but also digitized, idealized for the type of garment that we intended for and in the right color. Finally, as we continue around tracing, we're building several types of shapes. And in doing so, we're building a sequence of shapes. This time I'm going around counterclockwise, so just pick the direction that you're comfortable in. And again, I'm going to go back to my embroidery settings. The last setting that we did before, which is our leather jacket, remains. But also one more note on this step is that you can also choose the type of stitch that you want. In this case, we've been creating satin stitches, but I'd like to make this into a fill type stitch, so I'll choose Stitch and Sew's fill stitch, which is the step satin. There are other types of stitches that we want. We'll just go ahead and choose this basic type of stitch. And again, we'll also choose the color. And then finally, if we want to adjust the angle, and finally hit stitch it. And one thing that I want to show you also is that in an additional tool called the block list will let us see what we've been creating in the order that we've created it. You can see we created the beak first, then the back of the body of the dolphin, and then its belly. If, for example, we want the belly to sew first, this is the sequence, and we can adjust the sequence by clicking on any of these shapes, highlighting it, and right-clicking and changing the sewing order by reordering that frame, and let's go directly to the start, to the end, or to a specific position. For example, this is the third block, and I want it to go to position 2, so I'll just type 2, click OK, and now the sewing order has changed. Finally, the final mission and our intention in this video is to show you the other important drawing tool in digitizing. In this case, this is the column tool. So far, we've demonstrated fill stitches and satin stitches that can be created with the freeform tool. But a more traditional digitizing tool for experienced digitizers and also those that are looking to create a really good satin stitch can use the column tool, which uses traditional point-counterpoint digitizing techniques creating a back and forth sequence that's more commonly known, and it's also convenient to do to create satin stitches and set the angle. And we'll zoom in on this so you can see what we're doing. I've created this pair by pair, and also again, just like the other shapes, we can adjust this on the fly without having to go into any sort of editing mode. Controlling the angle of the stitches by these guidelines as they pass through. And finally, we'll set our color. And instead of a fill stitch, we're going to use a satin type, which is the default for this column type tool. And finally, we'll hit stitch it. And you've just seen the major tools that we use to digitize just about any type of